Welcome to Short Final. We often talk about emergencies, but it's not often that we get to experience them in reality and still be able to talk about it. On the 22nd of November, pilot and instructor Brad Isaacson was flying at Sling 2 with registration Zulu uniform, Foxtrot November Mike in the Eastern Cape, when after a sudden power loss, he only had split seconds to make a decision. Brad and his passenger, also a young pilot, managed to walk away from this emergency. Today, we are joined here by Brad at Rand Airport to talk us through what happened on that day. Welcome, Brad.
Hi, Donnie. Good to be here. Thanks for having me.
Brad, it's not that often that we get to actually talk to somebody that has had to live a real-life emergency. Take us back to November the 22nd, 2025. What was your plan and what happened?
Yeah, Donnie, it was a beautiful Saturday morning, clear skies, light wind. I arrived at Umkomaas Airfield, pre-flighted my Sling 2, took off and headed to Margate, which is about 30 minutes south of Umkomaas. Landed there to pick up an ex-student of mine, Claudia. And yeah, we pre-flighted, went through the motions, departed runway 05, turned out right, and we went south towards Port St. John's. We had been flying for about an hour, 10 minutes, doing touch and goes at Port St. John's, runway 09 and 27. We went a little bit further south, turned around to come back towards Port St. John's. I was around 750, 800 above sea level, just off the coastline. The cliffs in that area are 550, 600 feet. Put power on for the climb to climb back towards Port St. John's Airfield. 12, 15 seconds into the climb, at about 85 knots cruise climb, engine lost a little bit of power. I immediately leveled off mid-range throttle, back to full power, repitched for the climb. It sure does get your attention when the engine RPM drops, a slight loss of power. And yeah, within 3 seconds of applying full power again, the engine just rolled back to idle, and I immediately pitched over for the glide. 72 knots best glide speed in a Sling 2. I was about 75. Off the throttle, on the throttle, off the throttle, fuel's on, fuel pumps on, fuel pressure, T's and P's are green, and I immediately knew we've got a problem here. I instinctively thought it's something fuel related because the prop was windmilling. And yeah, within 12, 15 seconds, it was all over. It was just get busy, pitch for best glide, keep the aircraft flying, make a decision of where to go, select flaps, round out, hold off, and fly as slowly and softly into the trees as possible.
Wow. So at that moment that the emergency happened and you realizing this is a full-blown emergency, right? You have seconds to make a decision. What were your options that you were evaluating, and why did you choose to go into the trees instead of elsewhere?
Well, Donnie, when the engine lost power briefly that first time, definitely an adrenaline spike. It gets your attention, and while I'm fault tracing, I'm thinking ocean off to my right. That's not a good option. Ditching opens another can of worms. You got to survive the ditching. Hopefully you don't end up inverted in the water. Then you got to exit the aeroplane, check that your passenger or crew member is okay. You got to tread water and then swim about 1 kilometer to a beach. So that was not an option. Option 2, yes, there was some a sloping grassed area full of big rocks. Rocks are pretty solid, and they do a lot of damage to an aircraft, rip it apart, which could lead to fire. So instinctively that was no. And I saw the forest canopy and I thought that's my softest possible landing spot I can find. Foliage and branches are generally soft, will catch you like a spider's web, a slow deceleration. And as you well know, force or impact goes up at the square of the speed squared law, i.e. dissipate energy over distance, and the trees were the best option for me, the only option available.
So now you made that decision, very few seconds left. Just talk us through, from the realization of that emergency, choosing to go into the trees, What is the moment by moment that you had to manage all the way to impact?
Well, Donnie, first and foremost is maintain control of the aircraft. Keep that wing flying. Don't get slow. Don't try and stretch the glide. You want to store a little bit of energy, so you have a little bit of energy to work with in the round out and the hold off. So it was immediately pitch the nose down. I'm trying to fault trace, throttle off, throttle on, fuel sufficient, fuel pump on. We've got a problem. Water no option. Rocks definitely no go. Trees, that's it. And said to my young co-pilot Claudia, I said, seatbelts tight, hold the dashboard, we're going into the trees, we'll be absolutely fine. I didn't hear a squeak from her. And I just selected flaps 3 as I was rounding out above the treetops. I felt the main wheels touch the canopy, and I gently squeezed the stick to slow down as much as possible and flew it into the canopy. And our deceleration was very, very gentle and very slow, probably about 15-20 meters to stop, with the branches catching the wings. And the hardest impact was actually the final little jolt, probably about 10 kilometers an hour to a stop. Little yank in the straps, and that was it.
So, Brad, you come to a stop, you realize that you're safe. I guess the emergency is not over. Just talk us through, now that the aircraft has come to a stop, what happens then?
All right, so you've now survived the crash. It's time to get busy. Make sure everything's shut down, exit the aircraft as quickly as possible. Obviously watching for jagged metal. Don't cut yourself on that. Get away from the aircraft, and then try and get word out and get the emergency services alerted.
So now you are in a rural area of the Eastern Cape. I would imagine you've got your cell phone. Did you have any cell service, and how did you get hold of emergency response?
Well, I actually couldn't find my cell phone. It had fallen off my lap, bounced off the floor, and then got caught on the firewall under the dash. Took me 45 minutes to find my phone, and there was no cell phone signal. So my co-pilot
couldn't even phone you.
To find the phone. Anyway, managed to locate my phone and walked out the forest to the top of a hill. Thank goodness there was cell phone signal, and we phoned. First phone call was to her parents to let them know, listen, we've had a bit of an accident, but we're absolutely fine. Don't panic. We've got to get busy now, and it's gonna take us a while to get out here. I did ask her father to phone Virginia Air Traffic Control with our PIN location and our registration, as well as my phone number, to alert the emergency personnel.
And how long did it take them to offer you help?
I have to say, Michael from ARC was fantastic. My phone rang within 10 minutes. Bear in mind, I spent 45 minutes trying to find my cell phone in the cockpit. So this was almost an hour after the accident. Michael from ARC was fantastic. He alerted the EMS paramedics, as well as the police from Lusikisiki. And it did take them 2.5 hours to get to scene because it's very rural and very undulating terrain. I phoned a friend of mine in Port St. John's, and I asked him to come and fetch us. It took him an hour to get to the scene. It's only 10 miles south of Port St. John's, but a 50-minute car drive.
Wow. So I'm wondering, in terms of, let's say there were a medical emergency, and you have that lag time for somebody to come and help you. This flight is obviously a day VFR flight. You're not on a flight plan. What would be your hindsight thought that you could have maybe had some kind of following, shared your location on your cell phone? I'm just curious as to, is there anything that you would advise people to do on a regular VFR flight so that if something were to happen, people know where to come look for you?
We didn't have a flight plan, but I've always told someone at the airfield, this is my intention. I'm going here to pick up this person, and then we're going to be flying here, and I should be back around this time. And if I'm not back when I say I'm going to be back and I haven't sent a message, then at least somebody knows the route you've taken and when to stop.
And where to start looking. Yeah. Very, very solid advice. Okay, so you now have emergency services that are helping you. Talk us through the weeks after the accident. What is it like dealing with this emotionally? Did you get straight back into flying? Did Claudia get back into flying? Just how do you process this?
Yeah, Donnie, everyone's built differently. People handle strenuous situations differently. Some people can handle drama, trauma. Some people suffer from post-traumatic stress. For me, it's not my first emergency. I've been flying for just on 23 years now. I am an instructor. I like to think I've got a cool head. And it was my job to salvage the situation. I calmed Claudia down. She was in a little bit of shock post-impact or post-accident. I just reassured her, everything's fine, we're okay, we'll get out of here, don't stress.
And what help is available when you go through this experience, having to deal with the aftermath? What assistance was available to you?
Yeah, in South Africa, there is Mayday South Africa, which is a setup designed by pilots to help pilots who have been through traumatic aviation events. I'd highly recommend that. I personally have assisted pilots in the past who have been in accidents to get them flying again and building their confidence and just getting their courage back. And then you've got to get busy with the paperwork. It's obviously advise CIA of what's happened. The paper trail to follow, the accident report, the pilot questionnaire, the operator questionnaire, making notes of what happened at what time. I remember we had just come to a stop. We had exited the airplane and I immediately sort of leant back into the aircraft and Claudia was asking what I was doing and I was saying it's 8:55 a.m. QNH 1017, temperature 28 and wind easterly 5 to 7 knots. And she said, why are you doing that? I said, for the pilot questionnaire that I'm going to have to fill out. I'm making mental notes.
Mental notes, or did you do that on video? What was your...
Well, I made a note of it and then I wrote it down because you can have short-term memory loss after a traumatic event.
Yeah.
And then, yes, paperwork through CIA. Cameron was fantastic at CIA. Cotejo, the CIA investigator, was terrific, very helpful. And then insurance. It's another issue to handle. Advise your insurance broker. He then puts an assessor onto the case. You discuss things with him, and start the paperwork on the insurance claim, which also worked very, very easy.
And what's your advice for us pilots, considering this entire experience and your many years of instructing? What would be your key takeaways?
Donnie, I think stay as current as you can in aviation. Fly as often as you can. Build your skill set. Practice emergency procedures. And try and be as far ahead of the aircraft as you possibly can. And that only comes with time in the seat.
Excellent. Great advice. Thank you very much, Brad. Well, Brad, thank you so much for joining us and really just giving us your first-hand experience. We're really, really thankful that you're and your passenger pilot, Claudia, is okay, and that you're already back in the air, and some really good nuggets of wisdom that you shared with us today.
Yeah, thank you, Donnie. Yeah, that was my little guardian angel to work overtime.
Absolutely. So thank you so much for tuning in for this episode on Short Final. When emergencies happen, we don't rise to the occasion, but we sink to the level of our experience and our training, as the saying goes. Please do like and subscribe in your support of this channel. And until we chat next time, fly safe.